Ooh boy, it's Finish My Story, where I try to tell narratively complex stories one line at a time. Yeah, we're here. It's been some time. We've been working on stuff that you'll see soon, but we're back. We haven't left you, dear listeners. Who are we?
Well, I'm John. I'm a screenwriter.
And I'm Cameron. I'm a writer/actor.
And I'm Peter, and I'm an improv actor. And together, we are the Wonder Triplets. Or the Super Friends.
I wouldn't wish that on anybody.
Listen, you're right.
How have you guys been? It's been a while.
It has been a while.
Like the great song.
It's been a while since
you.
I stopped for legal reasons. That's as much as I will sing. Cameron, I haven't seen you ever.
Yeah, no, I've never ever seen you outside when we record this podcast.
These two hang out together like a lot more than they hang out with me. So
well, you live in Hollywood.
And you live in
North Hollywood. Which, for those who aren't from L.A., seems like it's very close. But for those of us in L.A., we know how far that is.
It is
Still
a stone's throw away.
I know. Well, whose fault is that?
Peter's.
God's.
So, what have you guys... Well, actually, we need to get into some other things first.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to get right into it.
Let's
just
get right
excited
into it.
to be here.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We're all excited.
Happy.
Mm-hmm.
Cameron's excited.
Cameron's super excited. It's oozing out of her pores. The excitement.
I'm so excited.
Yeah.
Literally, her pores are opening, and just this excitement is gushing out like blood.
Can we not talk about her oozing excitement?
That sounds really good. Let's move on.
And we're gone.
Okay, so let's get into it. What narratives have you been into, Slamtown? See, Cameron's been writing her own narratives.
Yeah, I've been doing so much writing. I
reading.
I
her
was
brain is
reading,
like a bag of cats. Yes.
I was reading the last installment of the Red Queen series.
Oh.
I understand you've also picked up some James Joyce.
I did. I started reading Ulysses today.
Ooh.
And I love it. I don't know why everybody's like, oh, it's pretentious. Only assholes like it.
Well, I think
maybe I'm.
You have to say that you love it in order to be pretentious.
That's true.
But I also think everyone
like
talks about how difficult
jest.
it is to read, but it's like
it's not that difficult to read.
It's just like there's a lot of themes that are like deep that take some, but it's not like hard to read.
It's not hard
for the average audience. It is difficult to read.
If you
it's
didn't
a
like,
different style. You have to adjust to the style. Certainly.
And if you had a hard time reading Ulysses and you think we're pretentious assholes, well, sorry.
I mean, it's difficult to read because it's boring for a lot of people.
It is pretty boring
in
large stretches.
That is like, they're paid by the word.
I happen to like that style and that kind of rambling descriptiveness.
Wait, Cameron likes things that are rambling?
I
Never
do.
would have guessed given this podcast.
Peter, what have you been watching?
The World Cup.
That's not narrative.
I know. I just wanted to say.
Although they do a lot of acting.
There's a lot of for sure. There's been a lot of drama. But what happened? I watched Luke Cage, which is the new Netflix series because that's what I do. Watch Marvel because that's what I do with my time. I enjoyed that. Let's see. Oh, I'm watching Vertigo on Saturday again. I'm very excited.
Vertigo, the Hitchcock
I'm
movie?
seing From Dusk Till Dawn tomorrow.
Oh,
so that's gonna be
yes, Vertigo, the Hitchcock film.
Did you just say
compare?
Well, no, not compare. I mean,
they can be compared. They're both.
Speaking
films.
of film, the Hitchcock.
Speaking of
From
film,
Dusk
I'm
Till
saying
Dawn.
From Dusk Till Dawn.
Robert Rodriguez's two-genre film.
Can't wait to see Selma Hayek's titties.
That's pretty
fantastic.
Kind of like the only
movie.
reason to watch
It's the only reason to watch it.
No, you.
By the way,
the acting of Quentin Tarantino's not good enough.
By the way, hot take: Vertigo is wildly overrated. Wildly.
I feel ya. Yeah.
Wildly.
It's not my favorite.
Wild things. Wild strawberries. Wild thornberries. It's wildly overrated. You need to see the first 40 minutes of the movie in order for the second half of the movie to be any good.
Well, that's because
That's
it's one
usually
full
the
movie.
case for most, yes. But the first half is so horrible. I'm sorry. The opening is great. Everything with Gary Cooper and I don't know if I can the heights. Great. Who cares? after a point, like he's just falling around. You're just driving
John,
for 40 minutes.
Take your terrible take and go home.
I feel like this month-long break has made us all much more pretentious.
I'm a
Speak
Citizen
for
Kane
yourself.
fan,
Like
okay?
we
That's
were,
not
like we were
pretentious.
everyday people, and now all of a sudden we're like, oh, Vertigo is not Ulysses.
I liked Incredibles too, so you both can suck it. And John, what have you been narratively ingesting?
I was sort of found out for being a fraud and had to see for the first time ever Dirty Dancing.
That's right.
Never seen it. And I thought I knew a lot about Dirty Dancing just because of sort of cultural osmosis, but I knew nothing.
No, exactly.
I knew
right?
nothing. I didn't know, first of all, I didn't know it took place at a camp, which is like the first thing they show you in the
Like
movie.
everything.
You'd think that everyone would know that.
Movie.
I didn't know just how amazing the songs were. I didn't really quite realize what songs were in it other than
Mhm.
the
A lot.
obvious
Mhm.
ones. But also, it is an 80s movie made by people who thought they were making a 60s movie. And so it not having its own sort of period makes it like this amazing time capsule of
Yeah.
sort of like in the same way that like a Ferris Bueller. I mean, it's along those 80s. Anyway, the appreciation
it's
is
80s
real.
nostalgia for the 60s, which is such a bizarre watching it then
Now.
almost 40 years removed.
It's like watching a movie about nostalgia from the 80s will be in 20 years.
Yeah.
Well, I imagine it's what it was like watching Back to the
So,
Future. whenever-
Yeah.
So 20
that's
years
true.
from now, someone should watch Ready Player One and see how that goes. So that's a lot of 80s nostalgia, right?
Yeah. Also, a lot of crap.
Yeah, but
Just lots and lots of crap.
But
Just
it
bucket
was all
loads
worth
of
it
crap.
for the spoiler alert.
Nope, don't even do it.
Shining.
Yeah,
It's not a spoiler.
that's true.
Eat it.
just eat it.
So let's go. We're gonna start a rocking and a rolling. If it's your first time listening, welcome to Finish My Story. Go listen to some of the other episodes too. Check out last week's episode, which was actually last month's episode, but the one that's right before this in your feed. And so we're gonna try and tell narratively complex stories
One line.
At a time.
and we're doing this in a round in a circle. But we have some special things we do, like
Story pause.
what's a story pause, John?
A story pause is anytime we need some sort of clarification in the story, or we didn't hear what was said, or just to make fun of some other person.
Which is most of the time.
Usually, yes, we have a story pause.
Okay, and how do we do that?
We say story pause.
Okay,
And if we want to get back into the story,
Then
we say
what?
resume story.
or story resume.
Thank you, Peter.
And we also, what else do we got, Cameron?
Story punishments.
Oh no, not a story punishment. You'll have to run around while eating chicken. That happened to me.
Yeah.
Explain a story punishment, Cameron.
If you do something naughty,
like
forgetting a name or a detail of the story, or just generally being an idiot, you have to do. Oh, well, someone will bang you, and it sounds like a bang,
Bing.
like that.
This is a really well-told version.
It is, right?
You should thank Cameron for
You'll
her
get
explanation.
banged, and then you will be like, if you're the person with the most bangs at the end, that's the one who gets punished.
And you get punished by voting on our social media platforms. You can check them out at Finish My Story Podcast on Facebook and Instagram, and Finish Story Cast on Twitter. Follow us, get them likes, DM us, hit us up. Israel, we still haven't heard from you. I know you're listening out there. Hit me up.
We haven't heard from them?
No, they haven't talked to us.
Are they still there?
We got some Mexican listeners, though. Hey, Mexico. Miss you.
Miss you.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Again?
Well, they listened to the last episode.
We
In
thank
Mexico.
we thank you all for listening.
Anyway.
We implore you to keep listening.
We do.
Like right now.
And speaking of listening, we've got a bit of a controversial first line. It's not controversial. It's
only controversial to Peter because he doesn't,
because he refuses to accept the truth.
Right.
So we're doing a Disney movie because why not? Because we've done it before and we'll do it again. And the first line of this Disney movie, in my opinion, is Svenja Banise Baba.
We
That's
of
not
course
even-
are talking
it's-
about Anastasia.
It's Nansinyama Bagithisi Baba.
I wanted to
Just like
piss off Cameron.
look at
look
freaking
how angry she
lyrics
is.
sheet.
Look
and
how
you'll
angry
know
she
what
is.
it is.
Cameron's
It's
so
not
angry. This is great.
gibberish.
And those first words are sung by
Ah.
Bartok the Bat,
Yep.
as voiced by Hank Azaria. Everyone's favorite.
Absolutely.
But that's the first sung line of this film.
Yeah, it's a part of a song. The first line,
Actual line
is a line.
Is a line, and if you haven't figured it out, it's a Lion King.
Wow,
Yeah.
Peter, I love puns.
Yes, you very much do.
I make the puns.
Lots of
That
them.
one doesn't even qualify.
That one made me very upset.
I'm happy for you that you're upset.
I'm like
Doesn't
a normal
change my
person who
opinion.
has a very negative reaction to puns.
Yes, Cameron especially. She really hates them.
I enjoy a good pun.
Just looking deep into my soul. Oh goodness. Let's go.
That was USDA
let's
burn. That
Lion
was
King
prime.
this up. Who's gonna start?
Let's do.
Who's gonna start?
Oh, who's gonna start? That's a really good question. You know what?
I don't even know the line, so.
Oh, it was my choice. It was my choice. I picked Lion. I picked it.
So you're gonna start.
I'm gonna just say that right
And
now.
then we're gonna go
Me?
to Cameron. And then we're gonna go to me.
Oh, snap!
And then
Dragon.
to John.
Yeah, so we'll go me,
And then
Mm-hmm.
and then to Cameron,
And then to me.
and then to Peter,
And then to
and
John.
then back to me, John.
Yeah, and then back to Cameron.
Mm-hmm.
And so on and so on ad infinitum.
Hopefully not.
Yeah, that's.
That would be very bad.
So, welcome to the story.
Why you make it all spooky?
It's more like time changing.
Oh. Okay, let's do it.
Let's do it.
Life isn't fair, is it?
The words that Johnny's grandpa had spoken to him so many years ago echoed in his head now that he stood in the same cabin he grew up in.
You know, Grandpops, he said out loud to himself, you were right about one thing. Life isn't fair. But
Johnny stopped speaking at the immediate smell of something familiar, the smell of his deceased grandfather. Not a deceased version of his grandfather, but the smell that he had when he was alive.
Grandpa, he said, wondering if perhaps his grandpa was still somehow with him. He turned around, but the cabin was empty.
And then he remembered that his grandfather lived in this cabin, and therefore it probably still smelled like him, because no one had used it since his grandfather had laid on all the sheets and the blankets and stuff. So yeah, he realized, though, it makes sense that it smells like him.
He repeated to himself over and over, ignoring the fact that there was a ghost in the cabin.
It's definitely because he lived here for several years and laid all up on the sheets and everything, and it's definitely not because of that floating specter in the corner. No way. No way, Johnny said to himself.
What are you saying, my boy? A voice creaked out from the ceiling.
But it wasn't loud enough to reach Johnny's ears as he walked over to his grandfather's barcalounger and sat inside it.
He lounged back, thinking that maybe he'd heard a slight whisper of wind. That was a little weird because it had been such a still day. And boy, did it really smell like his grandpa in that corner where his barcalounger was.
Johnny thought back to all the times he wanted to sit in that barcalounger, and his grandfather would say, "No, son, that's my barcalounger. No one can sit there but me."
Life isn't fair, is it? Would echo continuously through Johnny's ears. But now he'd sit in the chair and no one could stop him.
That is until he felt two strangely ghostly arms pick him up and toss him out of the chair. "Life's not fair," a voice echoed again.
That's weird, Johnny thought to himself. I must have tripped on my own feet. I somehow was flying through the air, and then I just keep hearing my grandfather saying, "Life's not fair, is it, man? This is a strange day."
Johnny woke up in another room in the cabin, unaware of how he got there.
It was his old room that he'd had as a boy. And it, too, really smelled like his grandpa.
Johnny wondered how he got there, and also when he fell asleep. Because moments ago, he was awake, having been thrown from the chair, and now he was awake in another room without remembering the going to sleep part. Oh, I must be having those narcoleptic fits again.
That and the booze.
You see, Johnny was a drunk.
Story pause. Shots fired. Story resume.
As one must be to live in Billings, Montana, as he did.
Story pause. Shots fired.
Take that,
resume.
Montana.
Wow. Okay. Wow. Johnny hadn't much time in order to gather the things before the bulldozing crew would arrive at the cabin. He wanted the cabin destroyed and any memory of his grandfather or his grandfather's smell erased.
With so little time, he started scooping all of his old things into boxes. But only his old things, not any of his grandpa's old things, because those would have smelled like his grandpa, and he was trying to erase those memories.
Story pause. I like the visual of him literally scooping things into a box. Scoop,
That's how you
scoop,
do
scoop,
it.
scoop, scoop.
You grab things, you scoop them up, and you.
Are they on the
put them in a
floor?
box.
I don't
They
understand.
could be anywhere.
They could be, but if
Like, I
it's
could
scooping,
scoop
I
anything
assume it's on
here.
the floor.
I can scoop this.
So like in those Toys R,
Same
you
thing.
remember the Nickelodeon where you'd take the shopping cart and run through Toys R Us with 90 seconds and throw
man.
everything.
Yeah.
I
If you
wanted
used
that.
your arm at a horizontal angle, are you scooping things in, or are you hugging things into the
You're
cart?
gathering at that point.
Okay, so is
But
Johnny
if you're
gathering,
Hunting
or scooping?
or
He's
gathering?
scooping.
Okay, it's
He's
just a
grabbing.
funny image. That's all I'm saying.
That's, yeah.
Scooping. Yeah.
Now I want
Okay,
ice cream.
Cameron.
Okay, we could story.
Whatever. You see, Johnny didn't have a great relationship with his grandfather, Gene. Gene had tormented Johnny, specifically about the barcalounger, for so many years, and insisted that life wasn't fair, which taught Johnny never to trust anyone.
While it was Johnny's biggest character and core flaw, it was what led him to be so successful in the chair industry, in which he created comfortable thrones and barcaloungers for all to sit in.
So it was ironic, really, that even though he had thousands of barcaloungers at his...
Story pause. They're not barcaloungers. They're Johnny's reclinies, like reclining
Okay.
chair. Okay.
So
Story
even though he had thousands of Johnny's reclinies at his disposal...
Story pause. I think this is the first time a story pause has changed the narrative as it's happening.
We're taking things to a new place.
New
It's evolving.
level. Story resume.
Even though he had thousands of Johnny's reclinies at his disposal, the only one he really wanted was his grandfather's.
You see, his grandfather's barcalounger was made out of a special leather from young cows that was no longer legal to harvest, so it was super supple and soft.
And they also absorbed smell oh so well, which normally is not a thing you want in a chair, but in the countryside or in a cabin, you'd pay extra for it.
But enough about the chair. Johnny continued packing up the things that he wanted until he came across an old pocket watch.
I remember this pocket watch, he said to himself, but also out loud.
He opened the pocket watch and looked into the face of the watch and saw a reflection behind him. The reflection of his grandfather.
Wow, that's really weird, Johnny thought to himself. It almost looks like there's a ghost. He turned around as he saw the ghost.
You idiot, I've already been fucking with you for hours now. I put you to sleep. How do you not know there was a ghost? What is wrong with you?
But not a single sound came from Johnny's grandfather's mouth. He could only see the movements of his mouth, the mouthing of words, and assumed what his grandfather was saying was very nice.
Thanks so much, Johnny said. I really appreciate that. Is this you visiting me like one last time before I destroy your cabin that you built?
What? You're destroying my cabin? This is my cabin. I can't believe you'd destroy this.
You want this to be my cabin? Grandfather, I don't know why it had to be until after you died that we became close and friendly. I just, it's like you always said, life's not fair, is it?
As his grandfather continued to rant and rave at him silently, Johnny put the pocket watch in his pocket and went, "Guess this is mine now. Thanks, Grandpa."
You idiot! He continued to yell. I never said life isn't fair, is it? I always said life isn't a fair. Is it?
And by closing that pocket watch and putting it into his pocket, Johnny unknowingly trapped the spirit of his grandfather within the watch and carried him with him forever, and not allowing him to pass to safety or happiness in heaven or whatever.
Instead, Pocket Watch Grandpa was doomed to a life of bar hopping and chair selling for many, many years.
Until one day, 25 years later, Johnny was at his own cabin in the woods, somewhere near Billings, Montana, with his son, Jeffrey.
When he got the news that he, Johnny, sold that pitch to ABC for Pocket Watch Ghost Dad, airing every single week, 20-episode order.
With a potential for 4 in the back order, which is really exciting for him.
So Johnny opened up the pocket watch to let his grandfather Gene know, who he hadn't seen in these 30 years.
And this being the first time that Johnny reopened that pocket watch, he let his grandfather's spirit out once more.
Which was really unfortunate timing because his granddad had always wanted to go to Hollywood. And now he'd be trapped in this cabin in somewhere near Billings, Montana forever.
Wait a minute, Dad, Jeffrey said. Is this where you got the idea for Pocket Watch Ghost, Dad?
No, I come up with all my ideas on my own with my own creativity and genius.
It seemed like Johnny really was ready to go to Hollywood.
Story pause. That's a great joke, Cameron. And I hope people out there appreciate that. Especially those who aren't in LA. But
and Israel.
It's, story resumed. No, it isn't, Gene said. And for the first time, Johnny heard his voice.
Life's not fair, is it? And life isn't fair, isn't it?
Story was John was making the best faces. John, you know this is an audio medium. You were like playing an old ghost. It was kind of impressive, but like
do you not
you were
ever watched
shaking.
someone do voiceover?
I have,
you
but
have
like,
you have to act.
I understand, but like that was
I
another
became-
level.
I was possessed by said ghost.
Yeah, for sure. Story resume.
Well, Johnny said, I know life isn't fair. You taught me that, but life isn't a fair? Is it?
This whole time I've been living my life like it's some sort of parade or carnival. And are you telling me that life's not like that?
Johnny's world was turned upside down, and he didn't know if he wanted to go to Hollywood anymore and make money for doing almost nothing, as he, the creator, would just sit there and collect. But maybe he had to rethink his life. Maybe he had to rethink everything sitting down.
And so he pulled out of storage the one thing of his grandfather's he had saved for all those years. That old barcalounger, and he sat down in it.
Get out of my barcalounger, Gene said. You're not allowed to sit there. How many times must we go over this?
But the ghostly reverberations from Johnny's grandfather could only rock the chair in a soothing and comforting manner that gave Johnny this.
I don't know, Grandpa, he said. Kind of seems like life is a fair when you're sitting in this chair.
Story pause. Story resume.
As the chair rocked back and forth, Johnny could feel the warm, welcoming arms of his grandfather. With his son, Jeffrey, just beside him, he thought to himself, man, now this would make an even better show.
But then the cold blanket of death covered Johnny in the chair and reunited him finally with his grandfather, where he could hear him actually say,
Life isn't a fair, but death is. And then he led him into a giant dead people carnival.
It was kind of like Coco in that respect. But Jeffrey was sitting there in the cabin watching his father die very, very suddenly and with no warning, and screamed out, Dad, what happened?
and with one last effort, Johnny's hand reached out and held the pocket watch, of which was taken from him and passed down.
And suddenly, both Johnny and Jean were sucked back into the pocket watch. Now doomed to spend an eternity going to do school science fairs and agonize about what college to get into and be in an orphanage because, you know, Jeffrey is an orphan now.
Story pause. It sounds a lot like a mixture of like Jumanji, of being pulled into the game, or like being John Malkovich, where you have to live in the life, or like Superman 2, and you're in the prison. With the...
Great references, yeah.
Don't applaud my references. I just made myself look really uncool right now.
You are really uncool, but that's okay. We still love you.
Well, you're the Marvel guy. It's not saying it.
I didn't say I was cool.
Story resume.
And when Jeffrey grew up, 20 years later, he was at his old father's cabin with his son, George. And he said to George, "Now I've got a story to tell you about this cabin."
And it all came from my own brain.
Jeffrey had grown up to be a story thief, just like his dad.
And at the end of his story, he said, "And here's a pocket watch that's very similar to the pocket watch I told a story about, but don't open this one." And so George never did.
And the souls of his grandfather and great-great-grandfather would be trapped forever, happily ever after.
The end.
What did you want to do?
Can you say, like...
You could say it right now. We can have a fake ending. It's like, you know.
She ended it. I really wanted there to just be like a horror movie type.
Just say question mark. I'll say the end. You say question mark.
Well, you go the end, and you go.
Yeah.
She said the end already.
But that's what this is all staying in. You're doing it. This is part of the process.
Well, now this is in
Cameron.
Doing it live. The end.
question mark.
Oh, Peter. I wanted my.
And then they looked at a photo from the 40s, and it was him.
And then a giant's foot crushed the cabin.
All work and no play makes Homer something.
Go crazy? Don't mind if I do.
Oh, nice work. That was a short one.
I thought you said you'd never say that to me ever again.
I said that was a short one that time, not this is a short one.
Shots fired.
Now everyone's gotten some shots fired today. Cameron, what did you learn today?
I learned that pocket watches can be dangerous.
That's funny. I mean, I learned something similar, and it's maybe something that I've always known. It's that time is a prison, but it's also a flat circle. That came from my own brain. I didn't steal it from anything.
It's also an ever-flowing river.
That's time.
Oh, I watched Jurassic World.
Oh, yes. We didn't talk. We should have all talked
Fallen
about
Kingdom,
Did you watch Fallen Kingdom?
No, I did not.
It's really dumb.
It was so fun, though.
But it's so much fun, right?
It's so fun.
It's like really dumb, but really fun. Everyone's hating on it, but it's like, come on, what are you really expecting? Like it's more fun than Jurassic World and so much dumber. It actually is better.
I went to have 2 hours of fun, and I had 2 hours of fun.
We should have put this at the beginning. Anyway, that's our 20-second review of Jurassic World from Cameron and Peter. We should do 20-second review. No, we shouldn't.
We should. Not today.
Not today.
Well, we did it today.
We did it today. Anyway, I learned that if you name your son with the same first syllable that you have, that will become a trend for the rest of your generations.
Well, only if you're a hack storyteller. Like Johnny.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm not. I just saw the meanest mug ever from Peter. Like I had betrayed him and his family. Like I went full Montague to his Capulet. Like
full Hatfield to my McCoy.
Well, no, I'm not. I'm not in love with you. I'm kidding.
No, you switched those.
Yeah, I was on purpose.
This is a welcome back, everyone. And now we're going to tell the story. That was all the prelude.
Is it?
You know what I learned?
What?
This is what I actually learned. I learned that life isn't a fair. Is it?
Is it?
We never answered that question. I think Johnny really misunderstood his grandfather. He didn't hear the question mark at the end of that sentence. He assumed it was a period. And when you assume, you make an ass out of periods.
Yeah.
That's gross.
All right.
Thank you guys.
But like, actually, though, can we like all go and do like Johnny's Reclanies together?
Oh, I'm down to go to Johnny's Reclanies.
That's a good idea.
Everyone's gonna be like, "What the fuck is a Reclani?"
Rolls off the tongue and it rolls you off your feet.
What
is it like a food?
it?
Is it like a food type, a Reclani, like a Klondike bar?
No.
No, it's like a recliner.
Much nicer.
Why?
You would do so much more for a Reclani than a Klondike bar.
Oh man, I would.
What
fucking
wouldn't you do
stab
for a Reclani
someone
bar?
for a Reclani?
As you were saying, Cameron.
Yeah.
Slammerin.
I would like
Slammy.
not. Don't use that nickname.
Moon's over my slammy.
It's a good nickname. I like it.
It's my nickname for her.
Oh,
now
it's
the whole world knows.
Yeah, I guess we do.
I hate you, world. Jurassic World. Okay. If you haven't yet, follow us on our social media handles. We just talked about this, but do it. Check us out. Instagram, Finish My Story Podcast. Find that on Facebook. Same thing. Twitter, Finish Story Cast. Check it out for some up-to-date content every now and then.
You can also find us, our personal accounts on Instagram, and you can find us and follow us and, and bother us.
Like, who are we? Like, what's your name?
Cam Hope.
Jonathan Monitz, Monitz. I'm the only one.
I'm Peter Osterweil, and on Instagram it's Posterweil. And it's pretty hard to find. I'm not going to spell my name. You're not going to look it up that way. Just go to Finish My Story Podcast Instagram. You can click me from there. Come on.
All the while, Posterweil.
There's been a lot of angry stares today.
Do you not like that? I feel like that's like a fun one. You could
in a while, Posterweil.
All the while.
Yeah, that's not. I'm used to the Oscar Wilde thing. So, I think that's all. Until next time, guys. I hope you had a great time. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon luncheon. You've got some strawberries, you got some toast. I know it's not quite a meal, but it's like a little thing, and maybe some cucumber sandwiches. I hope you have a great rest of it, because it's just kicking along there, and
you're the worst waiter ever. Just
going, and I just hope you don't finish that cucumber lemonade too fast.
You know how you said you wanted just the tip? You're not getting any tip. Come on.
All right, bye.
Bye.
Bye.